the Bible, to the last book of the Bible. We've just been in the first book of the Bible, now we're in the last book of the Bible, Revelation. I want to talk a little bit about Revelation first and about its author, because I want to make sure you're all on the same page. It was written by a man named John. He wrote 5 books of the New Testament, including the Gospel. He wrote Revelation when he was an old man. And under dire circumstances. The guy was on the island of Patmos, basically locked up for his Christian beliefs. And he was there, most commentators think, for 6 to 9 months, and basically solitary on a rocky island. And he was old at that point, maybe probably in his 80s, maybe almost, could even be 90s. And that's when he wrote the book of Revelation. Now all of you who've read it, you know it speaks in a swirling prophetic imagery, and it's a lot of it seems metaphorical. Sometimes it's not chronological. It's a difficult book. It's a difficult book to interpret. But I can't explain most of it. I can, though, explain a little. I'm going to go to Revelation 12 and show you a corner that I think I understand. Let's take a look and see what John describes. He says, a great and wondrous sign appeared in heaven. What is the sign? Well, I want you to watch this. It's a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet, a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. If you understand this, please email me, okay? His tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that he might devour her child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. Hey, here's that scepter again. Who's the child? That's Jesus in his role as King of Kings. We saw the prediction in Genesis, and here in Revelation, he appears again, and he's got that scepter, because he's now the King of Kings. So, if the child is Jesus, who's the woman? Yeah, that's pretty easy. Okay. And in metaphorical terms, who's the dragon that waited at the foot of the woman to devour the child? That's Herod. The dragon is Herod. John elsewhere tells us in Revelation that the dragon is Satan, but we know in human terms it was Herod. So we now understand what he's describing is the birth of Jesus, but he sees it in the heavens. I'm going to show you something now that death, look at all the little hairs up on the back of my neck and the back of my arm. And because what follows Jupiter to the sky as we animate the sky is Virgin, the Virgin. And she's clothed in the sun. And she has the moon at her feet. It's just a crescent moon, a very small crescent, barely invisible moon. There's a reason for that. This is Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. The sheer weight symbolism in the sky on this day blew me away. In September of 3 BC, when Jupiter is coming in close conjunction with Regulus, the king planet and the king star. That happening in Leo, the lion representing the nation of Judah, the tribe of Judah. That rises in the sky, and behind it rises Virgo, the Virgin. And she's clothed in the sun. And she has the moon at her feet. It's exactly what John described in Revelation 12. It's what he saw in his vision. It's obvious. That got me. When I went on the time forward and saw that rise and realized, oh my goodness, that's what John saw. There it is. That really let all the hairs come up. So I'm looking at all this stuff happening here, and everything's just, really moving me. And I'm thinking, man, this may be the birth of Jesus. And then I thought, wait a minute, maybe not. Because Jewish people and a lot of Christian people believe that life begins at conception. So I thought to myself, well, maybe this is the conception of Jesus. Maybe this is the Annunciation, when Gabriel appeared to Mary, and she said, be it done unto you. Well, you can test that. I thought, well, let's just wind forward 9 months and see if there's anything interesting happening in the sky. So that's what I did. So let's jump forward 9 months. Now, we're still reading from Babylon because I don't think they've left yet. It's now 2 BC. It's June. It's 9 months later. Jupiter has finished crowning Regulus in Leo. Is now moving backwards through the constellations like it always does. I'm going to note the sunset because I need the sky to be darker. You can see it setting in the west, of course, like everything does, because it's the rotation of the Earth. Incidentally, if you're in Babylon and you're looking west, what are you looking toward? Israel. Okay. Now I'm going to show you something that you can see in any planetarium around the world. Even if they don't believe in Jesus or the Bible or anything, they're going to show you this at Christmas. Because all planetariums do Christmas shows. That's the only way they can get you in there, right? And they always show this event because this event is simply so spectacular. Whether they believe in God or not, they're going to show you this shot. I'm going to kind of cheat as I show it to you, though, because an observation back then was all naked eye observation. They had no lenses. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to zoom in because I want to show you guys. I'm going to take you in on the secret of what's happening here. They couldn't zoom, but we can. So I'm going to zoom in, way in. So finally, I get those two objects separated. One of them is Jupiter. The other one's another planet. You're going to tell me which one, too. Men are from Mars. Women are from Venus. That's the mother planet. Venus is the mother planet. So we have Jupiter, the king planet, and Venus, the mother planet, coming into very close conjunction. That seems kind of pregnant, doesn't it? In fact, they got even closer than that. Let me wind time forward just a little bit. What I'm trying to show you is that they really stacked like a figure eight. So they didn't block each other's light. They added. What you had then was two stars stacked on top of each other, too close together to separate with the naked eye. So to an observer, it appeared to be the brightest star anyone alive had ever seen. You know the math, and so I can tell you that no one alive had ever seen a star that bright. That was it. I believe the star of Bethlehem was the brightest star. So we've seen the birth of the king in the sky. We've seen the brightest star. But now we have the issue of it being in the south. Remember when they were traveling from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, the star is said to have been before them, ahead of them. So it would have to be in the southern sky. So let's go back to the sky. See if Jupiter did that. They've now traveled to Jerusalem. It's November. I've given them some time for travel. This is south. Remember, Bethlehem is due south of Jerusalem. And then 7 in the morning, sure enough, there in the sky, in the southern sky, is Jupiter, of the little town of Bethlehem. Now the hard part, though. Can a star stop? How can a star stop?
So that was a puzzler. Because we all know stars can't stop. I mean, physics and inertia prevent that. So our puzzle wasn't that hard. I worried about that one until I realized I had the problem upside down. And I had it backwards. The problem is not that stars can't stop. The problem is that all stars are always stopped. I mean, they move like the hour hand on your watch. You can't see it. You know it's moving, but you can't see it move. Well, if the problem is that stars are always stopped, what can Matthew have meant by saying the star stopped? And I thought retrograde motion, because of course stars do stop, planets do, in their movement through the field of fixed stars. They stop, they even reverse course. And that's how I think retrograde motion explains what the star stopping was.
So did Jupiter do that? Let's have a look. I'll animate Jupiter and let it drop a tail. And there you see it. Sure enough, Jupiter comes to a full stop and reverses course over the little town of Bethlehem. But I want to show you another screen that's more fun because I can throw dates with it. Now what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to let Jupiter fly through the field of fixed stars, and it's going to throw off dates so we can tell when these events are happening. The first one there, I know it's small, I'll read it for you. It says 1030 of 2 BC. Now let's fly Jupiter. You see it moving through the fixed stars. That says 1125 of 2 BC. It's slowing up. It's going to stop right about here. Reverse course. The date when it stopped with the little town of Bethlehem, 1225 of 2 BC. Does that date sound familiar? Well, Mr. Larson, you mean they went down there at Christmas? Well, turns out that's true. Am I saying that Jesus was born on 1225? No, I'm not saying that at all. Absolutely. In fact, I don't think anyone thinks that. No, what I'm saying is that is quite possibly the date of the first Christmas. Did it have any meaning to them? No, it had no meaning. The date had no meaning to them because they didn't use our calendar system. I mean, but it does have meaning to us. It could well be assigned to us. Let me give you the chronology now.
If that's true, and it appears that his research is demonstrating that, what a wonderful thing that God would condescend to our thinking of Christmas and make that the date that he knew that we would be celebrating Christmas all these years, and make that the date that the Magi actually arrived to bring gifts to Jesus. I mean, that's just icing on the cake. Just a remarkable thing that God and engineer, because remember, and this is the thing that really struck me as I watched this the first time, is that the planets, remember, are moving according to the way that they were put into motion when God created the universe. And they continue to move, and there's different relationships. Like he said, there's only one time that those planets were in conjunction to produce that, what looked like the brightest star ever. Only one time in history, and it'll never happen again. And to think that all the movement of the planets was something that God put into motion when he first created the universe, and around 4,000 or so years later, all the things happened in the sky just like he planned. But he set it in motion thousands and thousands of years before. I know we believe that God can do anything, but that just blows my mind that he did it that way, that it occurred that way. It's just remarkable. Any other comments before we go back?
In September of 3 BC, Jupiter crowns Regulus in Leo. Up rises Virgo, clothed in the sun. New moon birthed at her feet, Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year. 9 months later, the biggest planet goes together with the brightest planet to make the brightest star anyone alive had ever seen. Where? Right over Jerusalem as it sets. The Magi arrive. They get there sometime around November. They go to Herod and they say, "We've seen the star. Where's the baby king?" Herod says, "Bethlehem." So they're leaving the gates of Jerusalem to go to Bethlehem, 5-mile trek. And they look up, and there's the star. There's Jupiter, right over this little town of Bethlehem. One of the guys, who's the guy who does the math for the group, he's going, wait. It's in full retrograde. It stopped right over the little town of Bethlehem. They ride down to Bethlehem in 1225, 2 BC. We know that's the date because that's when the star stopped. They're carrying gifts, remember? Frankincense, gold, and myrrh. They find the baby boy. Is he living in a manger? No. He's moved. He's in a house now. He's described in Greek as a paidion. He's a toddler. They find the baby boy, and they present these fabulous gifts to him on what turns out to be the first Christmas, 1225, 2 BC. And now I've shared with you the Star of Bethlehem, but now I'm going to reveal something to you. It turns out in my studies, I find that the Star of Bethlehem is the beginning of what I think of as the celestial poem that ends at Christ's death.
And we'll save that for another time. All right, so according to his calculations and looking at the stars, it appears that Jesus Christ was conceived in the womb of Mary in September of 3 BC. He was born in June of 2 BC, and the Magi arrived December of 2 BC. And it seems to me that the stars pretty much settle that. And there's nothing in history or the biblical record that contradicts that at all. And I think that fits very well. Okay, let's go back to our notes and continue looking at what we have there concerning the birth of Jesus. A few more things for us to pick up on, some of which he has just talked about, and that is the gifts of the Magi arriving. And the question, of course, were the Magi at the manger? I think that most of you probably knew the answer to that already. The Magi, the wise men, were not there at the manger. Now, do I think that you should, next Christmas, tell your parents get rid of the Magi? Well, we'd have to get rid of the camels too, to be accurate, right? Nah, I mean, I don't go that far. I'll tell you what some families do to kind of put this in the right perspective is they put the wise men in a different part of the room, or maybe in a different part of the house, showing that they're on their way at the time that Jesus is in the manger, because they certainly weren't there. Now, the other thing, of course, it'd be nice to find Magi on horseback, but I don't know of anybody that does that. All right, so were the Magi at the manger? Well, if we look at the text, Matthew 2:11, it says they came into the house, not the cave, not the stable, and saw the child with Mary, his mother, bowed down and worshipped him. And then in verse 16, when Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he became enraged. He sent men to kill all the children in Bethlehem and throughout the surrounding region from the age of 2 and under, according to the time he had learned from the wise men. Now, he didn't know that when Jesus was conceived, that was his conception. He might have thought that was the birth, and just to make sure, he added another year, basically. So he wants to be certain that he gets the Messiah, so he's not going to take any chances. So even though the Messiah is really about 6 months old at the time the Magi are there, he's going 2 years and under, just to be certain. All right, any comments or questions about that? All right, next we have the gifts. First of all, were there 3 Magi bringing the gifts? Probably not. It's just that there are 3 gifts. Now, your parents have probably gotten together and gotten gifts for somebody, more than one person getting one gift, and maybe you've done that too. So it's quite possible there are a lot more than 3 of them. It just describes that there are 3 gifts. So we'll probably consider that there are more than 3. As I said, there could have been 100 of them or more, these guys coming into town. All right, so then we look at the gifts. This is normally how we picture it. Back on this one, you see they've got these little boxes of gifts, and here they are here pictured in these little things. Is that what is indicated in the text of Matthew? Well, you might not know it from reading in your English translation, but the Greek word that is translated, and here it's treasure boxes, or I'm not sure what the other translations have, but essentially that word means a casket or treasure chest. You picture the pirates hiding the treasure chest, things like that, or a king opening his treasure chest. They brought treasure chests of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So that's a lot of stuff. Now, they might have had camels, but it was to transport all that valuable material. Now, frankincense is something that maybe most of you have never smelled before until now, because that odor you smell is frankincense. Some find it pleasant, most find it rather pungent, and may find it somewhat irritating, but that is frankincense. In some churches, even today, a Roman Catholic Church, for example, they'll still have people that are using frankincense in their services. Greek Orthodox, I believe, still does too. Now, some have suggested that one of the wise men may not have understood quite what he was supposed to get when they told him to get the frankincense. He brought Frankenstein instead. Now, the gifts that were brought have a symbolic value. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Does anybody know what gold may represent?
For a king.
For a king, right. So the gold represents royalty. And is Jesus Christ royalty? Yeah, he's born King of the Jews, right? Okay, what about frankincense? Do you have an idea what that represents? John?
Isn't it for, like, after someone died and the body's decomposing, they put something in that?
It might be used for that. That's going to have more to do with myrrh. Frankincense in the tabernacle and the temple, does anyone know what it was used for?
Offering sacrifice.
It was offering something to God. What did it represent as they were burning incense or frankincense to God? It represented the prayers of the people. So frankincense represents Jesus' deity, that there are prayers coming to him as the one being worshipped with frankincense. And then myrrh, you maybe have heard of people packing myrrh around a dead body back in those times, and that has to do with Jesus' humanity. So he is royalty, he is deity, he is humanity, and it's represented in these three gifts. Any questions? All right, now you know what Herod the Great's response was when he figured out that the wise men were not coming back to tell him where Jesus was, and he sent soldiers down to Bethlehem, a little ways away, and killed all the boys that were 2 years old and younger. Now, we don't know how many that was. Bethlehem was a relatively small town, so we're probably not talking thousands. It may have been a dozen or so, we don't really know. But certainly tragic for the families that were living there. Well, soon after that, Herod became ill. Oh, I should tell you this before we go on to his last days. Flavius Josephus, the Jewish historian, writes this about this time period. He said, at about this time, a rumor went around that God had decided to bring the rule of the Roman foreigners to an end, and that a sign from heaven had announced the coming of a Jewish king. So Josephus knew that there had been a sign in the stars. All right, so Herod became ill, and just to continue his paranoia, his perspective on things, this incident occurred. There were two popular teachers whose name were Judas and Matthias, and they had incited their pupils to remove the golden eagle from the entrance of the temple. Now, what does the golden eagle symbolize? The golden eagle, symbolic of Rome. You've seen pictures of the Roman standard, haven't you, with the eagle on it? So that eagle was there to remind them that Rome was in charge. And these two teachers got their students to go and remove it. Why? Because it's a sin to make idols. The teachers and their pupils, however, were taken by Herod the Great and burned alive. That occurred in 4 BC. So that was before the Magi arrived. And then shortly before his death, Herod ordered the slaughter of the children of Bethlehem. In addition, as he understood that he was going to die soon as he became ill, he gave instructions to his sister and brother-in-law to round up all the leaders of Israel and bring them into the stadium in Jericho. And that when he died, they were to kill them all. Why? Because he knew that when he died, the people of Israel certainly would not grieve and might even rejoice. And he wanted to make sure that they grieved. So he had plans to kill all of their leaders. Fortunately, his sister and brother-in-law did not follow through. Well, Herod's reign ended in terror. The monastery at Qumran, the home of the Essenes, suffered a violent and deliberate destruction by fire in 8 BC, for which Herod might have been responsible, that a few years before. He just continued on, of course, with the slaughter of the infants and so on. The last days of Herod indicate some of the symptoms that he experienced. He had intense itching, painful intestinal problems, breathlessness, fever, tumors in the feet, constant fevers, convulsions, and finally gangrene of the genitalia. Yeah. He died an excruciating death, brought on by kidney disease and finished off by gangrene. Joseph Klausner said this, as you see up there at the top. He stole to the throne like a fox, ruled like a tiger, and died like a dog. Flavius Josephus wrote this. He was no king, but the most cruel tyrant who ever ascended the throne. He murdered a vast number of people, and the lot of those he left alive was so miserable that the dead might count themselves fortunate. He not only tortured his subjects singly, but ill-treated whole communities. In order to beautify foreign cities, he robbed his own and made gifts to foreign nations which were paid for with Jewish blood. The result was that instead of their former prosperity and time-honored customs, the people fell victim to utter poverty and demoralization. Within a few years, the Jews suffered more misery through Herod than their forefathers had done in the long period since they left Babylon and returned under Xerxes. In 36 years of Herod being king, hardly a day passed without someone being sentenced to death. So he's called Herod the Great, but he was not great in the eyes of the people over which he ruled. They despised him and were much ill-treated by him. Well, on Monday we'll come back to see what happens after his death. What happens with Herod's family, who comes onto the throne next, and how that affects the family of Jesus as well as the people living in Israel.